Hello, my wonderful people. Thank you so much for joining another episode of the Lighten Up Project. I'm Malcolm Grissom, the stand-up CEO and founder of the World Laughter Organization. And you're not, but you are here for a lovely episode. I take care of my peeps. I do. I love you all. And it's all about love and connection, this podcast is. And so I love my English right now. I have yet another lovely, very interesting and heart-centered person to interview today. I'm going to share with you that my words are right now they're like little children on a playground playing hide and seek. I'm trying to find more words, and anyway, let's get to it. Okay, I have here a movement specialist. She has over 40 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She has a doctorate in complementary and integrative health. She enjoys bringing the neural arts to conversations through music and movement and nature and poetry and art and humor. And this is how she plays. She's going to play with us today. She has current programs both online and in person. She owns Cape Breton Tea Company and loves to highlight herbs for healing. She's an award-winning author and a program developer, as well as a podcaster for her own show, Be Well with Dr. Michele Greenwell. Let's welcome Dr. Michele Greenwell. How are you?
Hello. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Good. Yes. Thank you so much for being on the show. Can you do me a favor? I'd like to invite you to join me in 30 seconds of spontaneous laughter.
I'm game.
All right. Okay, I love that. And here we go.
Oh. Oh, lovely.
Wow. I love laughing. So, Michele, what is your relationship with laughter?
Well, I try to bring it into most of my conversations because a lot of times I'm delivering sometimes interesting, but maybe boring while we're doing a movement. But you want to make it interesting. So you bring laughter in as a way to excite the information and also for it to be received in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it just becomes that wah, 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 wah behind you. Somebody's talking, but you're not really registering. And humor is a great way to interrupt that thought process and allow it to go in.
Right. Yes, definitely. What do you say to people who say that humor in, let's say you're in let me give you a specific example. So if you are teaching a class with movement and you're talking seriously about healing, and let's say you talk about healing with herbs, especially, and then you start talking about laughter and humor, or you try and bring that into it, and one of your clients says, well, that's not appropriate, what would your response be?
I have a situation similar to that. And my grandson told me that he's not allowed to tell jokes at school anymore, and he's in pre-kindergarten.
Wow. Okay.
I thought, okay, I'm going to have to help him with his delivery, I guess. I don't know. When you're 4.
Yeah.
But, and I have had somebody say, you laughed at me when I was trying to do something that was really difficult and I didn't want to come back. And I had to say, I actually wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you, because every time something is a challenge, that's a great thing to discover, because you're discovering what is not working. And humor allows you to lighten that load and get rid of the seriousness of the struggle between the right and left side. They don't want to coordinate together. Or as you said, trying to find the words and they're swimming up there and you can't find them. Or you, for me, in my case, can't remember the nouns. But if you bring that humor in, it softens it and it allows you to open up. And then that's when you can make your discoveries. But you have to be vulnerable enough to say, I can do that. Yeah. And that it's not criticism in any way. It's a way to bring about the change that needs to happen.
Yes, I think humor are not humor. Let's not talk about humor, because if anyone listens to episode 2 of season 1, I talk about humor and I delve into the details, and it's a vast, much bigger, I'm sure, than a lot of us think when we think humor. So let's just focus on laughter. Laughter is so intimate, and that's why, for instance, comedy club owners and producers, they want everything in the dark, because people are more likely to laugh when they don't think anyone else can see them. And I bring that up because there are so many people, and it's been it's ingrained in our society, especially our earlier society, where, laughter is not appropriate here. And if someone's laughing, most likely they're laughing at you. And we're taking ourselves so seriously. And so there is a lot of times when people, they take themselves or what they're doing seriously. And so when you're laughing, they're thinking you're laughing at them rather than you're just laughing at the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And there are, so some people, like in the situation that you just gave, there's some people that you can say, after the fact, I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing with you, and they join you, they join in the fun. There are other people that, they're non-flexible per se, and they're still stuck on, well, you don't laugh at me. There are certain times when you laugh. They're stuck on that. And so when you say that, they still have a problem. Have you ever had a situation or a client where you've explained that, but you've still gotten and negative feedback.
They're not willing to have that laughter in the place, and it is definitely a criticism of them. But then that's just the indicator that it doesn't matter what you're going to say, because that's the filter that they're looking at everything through. So unless in my case, I'm able to change that filter by changing the way their systems are functioning, that filter is no longer in place, then they'll shift their perspective. But until that happens, it's not going to change. So it's a matter then of, is it important or not important? And then you let it go. But in the process of the work I do, when I can bring all the systems into harmony and that judgment filter can be let go, so much opens up and they don't even realize they shift. It just happens, which is so lovely.
So tell us a little bit about that system. What do you do to change someone's point of view?
So there's several ways that I could do it. So if I go to my Touch for Health training, then I can use a muscle to indicate where in the body the challenges are. And I can find those challenges. So I could find out that the wood element isn't working very well. And that is what governs the liver and the gallbladder. And a lot of people know, who want to detox, especially after New Year's, after all the food we've eaten and the extra sugar and all the extra drinks we might have consumed, the liver will take a lot of hits. And when it gets overwhelmed, anger and resentment comes in. And you can see where judgment can follow suit really easily. And then the filter that we're looking at is through that filter. And you just become irritable, or you have less tolerance for what people are saying. And you don't really realize you've shifted to that because that's just the way you're functioning. Other people will notice it. But then if we do find out something that the body would like to bring it back into balance, so I could hold a point on the head, I could rub a spot on the body, I could trace an energy line, that could bring the body back into balance, and that lens would shift and everything would go back into harmony. From my Tai Chi background, I can use some movement patterns. And when you move through those movement patterns, it opens up those blocks that I can identify in the Touch for Health system, and the body will come into a harmony. Now, usually I do that through awareness of parts of the body that are functioning well or not functioning well. And if I use those cues, people can know right away that they're not quite balanced. And they can easily then put a movement pattern in, bring everything back to balance. But it's the emotions that show up are telling you where blocks are in the system, and you can shift that around to come back into harmony. And it really just disappears, so people don't really realize what they've done. And they just carry on. The rest of us who are experiencing them, we know when we get that shortness that comes, or that irritability, and we notice it in the person, and we put up with it. But then when it shifts over to something else, we notice the smiles start to come, the calmness, the shoulders drop, all these little signs that the body's calmed down and it's come back into balance. And then we can witness that. But usually the person doesn't really notice that.
I've noticed, Walt, when you were describing that, I noticed first, personally, so my illness, my disease, it affected both the brain and the liver. And so I've noticed that throughout my life, I've noticed times when I've become more irritable, and and it was closer even to the point where I was just getting well, just basically finding that balance. And so that I just wanted to throw that in as a way to say, yeah, hey, she's right. If there are people out there who are skeptical, I'm backing her up with my personal experience as well. Now, another thing that I thought of when you were saying that is I thought of addicts, and I've had my share of connection with addicts and alcoholics. I'm thinking alcoholics especially, and we know that alcohol does terrible wonders to the liver. Have you working? Again, my English, I don't know. I'm making things up here. Have you worked with alcoholics or addicts?
It's not the area that I usually fall into, but what I do notice, and other people probably notice this, when you go to a party and people are drinking, right? That's when you notice the that they were describing the other day about the dances that used to be around here, and everybody, they were drinking dances, so people could consume alcohol at the dance, and they'd always end up in a fist fight at the end. And that's as people's alcohol consumption increased, the liver got more and more stress onto it to try to cope. That was the filter that came out. So when you go and you punch your best friend, and there really isn't a reason to punch your best friend, but in the height of that, it rises and rises in both of you, and then you clash over probably something silly, and then that's when those fights occur. So yes, you can notice it in there, but you can also notice it in people who eat a lot of junk food, as an example, and then the system is really bogged down and it just doesn't have the energy it needs. It can be in the liver if it's got too much toxin running through it, and then it would show up again as that anger piece. But then in that case, you notice that if you offer a glass of water, you do, for me, I do calming activities while I'm talking to people, and that can actually shift how they're feeling. So it would be in those capacities that you could work with an addict.
Okay. So we've been talking a lot about anger and irritability. Let's shift for just a moment. How about for depression or, fear, the anxiety that comes out of fear. So how does that show up in the body?
Yeah. Fear and anxiety are emotions that are part of the water element. So that's the kidney and the bladder.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people are dehydrated. A lot of people some people start in the morning with coffee and then drink coffee all day and never get any water. So their body is always functionally suboptimally because it does not have water to work with. Mm-hmm. And the immediate reaction is fear and anxiety. And so some people will think they have an anxiety disorder because it shows up all the time, but it's a pattern that you've developed and you're holding on to. And if you shift that pattern, amazing things can happen. It also comes with those people who, towards the end of the day, they didn't drink enough water. Maybe they had a little bit of water at the start of the day, but usually kind of around noon, people stop, 3:00 in the afternoon. They get that, they just want to fall asleep and they're tired. That's dehydration. There's not enough water in the system. That's when the kidney and bladder between 3 and 7 p.m., they're getting all of the energy to do their functioning, which is releasing toxins, watering, getting everything to flush through the system to support the liver. And if we change our habits around lunchtime and start adding the fluids in, make sure we've got lots of water before we get to 3 o'clock, we can reduce the anxiety of not completing the list or tasks for the day. Getting into a project at 3 o'clock, you're starting to get a little anxious because you had wanted to be further along, or you can't find the right details, and you start to ramp up with, then you just become inefficient. So those kinds of things, that's what'll show up for fear and anxiety. And people often think it is a syndrome, but it might not be. It might be a symptom of patterning that can be changed.
Okay. All right. So if there was someone who's listening right now who they feel anxious, either irritable or anxious because of out of the fear, so anxious either way, what would you say to them that they should do?
First would be add some water. So when I do a podcast, I always have a tea selected. So I always have something that's going to be hydrating, but my tea also has an intention with it. So before you and I started, I chose playtime tea. So I laughed when you said we're ready to play, because this is about every day is precious and inspiring when offering love and joy to others in all that you do. So I was already setting the stage to support anybody that was coming on to listen to this podcast in that feeling like they've been nurtured. They've been loved by our conversation, and we're there. So thinking about how to hydrate, that would be the very first thing that I would say. And then the second one is how I'm sitting at the moment, which is I've got one ankle crossed over the other. Now, oftentimes I'm sitting with both feet flat on the floor, but when I'm on calls, I really try to create a network of energy that is supportive. So I cross one ankle over the other, and then I can cross my hands one over the other. I could cross them and bring them up to my collarbone, but I just have them in my lap with the fingers linked. I've created a figure 8 loop. That figure 8 loop extends outside of my system and reaches, in this case, you and I are on a long distance call. We're electronically connected, which is really fast energetically. So we're able to have that figure 8 pattern cultivating and supporting us. It's such a simple tool to have in a business meeting to just sit in that figure 8 pattern. You're calming yourself, but you're also calming everyone else at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why the figure 8 pattern? Why? Why the figure 8 pattern? What's the science behind the figure 8 as opposed to just say crossing the legs and not the arms?
So you want to create that figure 8 because it responds to how all the tissues put together in the body. So we have 8 patterns that link different systems up. Our tendons actually loop around where they connect our bones together. They connect in a figure 8 pattern. Mm-hmm. The energy that runs through our toroidal field, so the outside of us, is in a figure 8 pattern. When we have some disruption going on, we can have a block in that figure 8, same as we can have a block in our 5 elements, so the wood element to the water element. And with that figure 8 pattern, as soon as we bring it back into flow, everything just calms. So I could cross my legs, but when I cross my leg and I don't do anything else with the top half of the body or assume a certain position, I actually can put stress into a particular system, depending on which foot I crossed, which leg. Like if I crossed my ankle over my knee, as an example, then it signals into different systems. So this is one way to not be sitting in a pattern that is going to take energy away. And a lot of people, when they're sitting at their desk, they're going to lean back into their chair. They're going to sit down onto their tailbone, which is where the cerebral spinal pump is going to be sending fluid up to the brain, and they're going to sit on that pump and shut it off. Then they're going to wonder in a little while how come they've got brain fog, but they haven't been sitting up straight. So that's what I usually do, is sit up straight. So I've got all of my muscles balanced front and back as well as the side. But the figure 8 pattern works lovely because you can do that on a Zoom call and no one has to know.
Okay. Lovely. So you do a lot of playing, movement. Movement is play, music is play, art, nature. There's a lot of play in nature. Where in your life do you give yourself permission to play, and where do you still hold back?
Oh, that's a good question. I play all day long. I play as soon as I get up in the morning, and I play right till I go to bed. And I like to think of my life that way. Where when I get into a project, like trying to finish something on a timeline, I can be relentless to get to the end line. So I have to be very observant that I don't go over my energy and override all my systems. And so that's where I try to play all day long in the way that I do things, the joy that I bring in, the activities that I do, so that I'm weaving all the time in and out. So if I'm going to go out of balance, I can weave something in that's going to bring me back to balance.
Right. Okay. What's one small tip that you would give to our audience? So the people out there who don't play.
Okay. This one, if first of all, I would say that figure 8 pattern. So sitting in the figure 8 can be really, really helpful.
Oh.
Great when you're at a doctor's office. You're waiting in the waiting area. That's a perfect place to put it. But the other piece is, at the moment, if you were to turn your head and look to one side and notice what it feels like to look to that side, and then turn your head the other way and see what it feels like to turn your head the other way. So if you'll do that with me. And notice what that feels like. And you may have one side that doesn't move as much as the other side. So the difference is telling you you're out of balance. If you can't see behind you, because we should be able to see 180 degrees, you should be able to see behind you. If you can't see behind you, you can only kind of get to the side. That's the amount of stress your body is currently under. So let's change it, because it doesn't have to stay there. So if you take your hand and just unfold your ear, just rub on your ear. You're going to go all the way from the top to the bottom. We do it 3 times. Just go a little bit deeper in. And we can do humming and counting with this too, which can access into the brain. But for today, we'll just rub the ear, and we'll rub the other side. If you look at the time to see what time it is, then your body clock will reset itself, just in case it's not on the right body time. All right. It's great for if you're traveling, jet lag. Jet lag doesn't need to exist if you do the ear rub, because you can just change your time zones. Okay, so you've rubbed that. So now if you turn your head, look again and notice how it's changed. You can see a little bit further?
Yeah.
A little bit easier. So we just calmed the whole nervous system down. We rubbed all the points that are reflective of the whole body. So we've touched the whole body by rubbing our ears. And the last thing I would ask is, when you turn your head, did you notice the second time, did the belly move as well? So did the belly want to turn with you?
No.
And when the belly wants to turn, that's when you have full integration of all the systems. If it doesn't participate, you have isolated movement, but you are not integrated as a whole. So that's another way of knowing I need to do something more to bring that into balance.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Very good. I need to do some Tai Chi to bring that into balance, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because it's a lot of fun.
Qigong. Some Qigong. So, wow. What did you do? All right. So now that you've just given us, is this something that you would personally do to recover after an emotionally hard day, or do you have another tip?
Yes, the ear rub I use a lot.
Okay.
I use the figure 8 pattern a lot. And another really simple one, I'll just move myself back from my desk slightly. This one is if you take your hands palm up, and if you lift your hands up, so they kind of come across from your chin, turn them over, and then bring them back down to your lap. Okay, so if you try that with me, we're going to go up, turn them over, and bring them back. And you'll notice when your hands go up, you're going to be pulled slightly forward towards the pubic bone. And then when your hands go down, you're going to kind of rock back towards the tailbone a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This rocking action is going to soften the lower back for those people who end up with a sore back at the end of the day, or they've done some activities where the back is showing it's tired. And if you let yourself fall into your feet, as you push on your foot, you are firing up all the organ systems at once. Just with this little action. And the up and down movement of the arms is changing your breathing pattern. So the diaphragm is now moving, especially through the back, because the back often gets stuck. Again, if you lean back in your chair all day, you'll find that your breathing will be as efficient as it could be. And this little action wakes up all the energy systems. Really simple. That's a seated Danu. Danu is an action of expansion and contraction. And that's a seated one, so you don't have to even get out of the chair. You can do it at your desk. You can do it on the side of the bed. You could do it lying in bed. So it's accessible for anyone.
Okay. All right. So our time is winding down, unfortunately, because this is a very, very interesting conversation. And for our audience, there is in our show notes, there is links to Michelle's podcast, other links to get in touch with her and everything else. Michele, what does belonging, what does what does belonging, what does being in your body completely, what does that feel like? Can you describe that for our listeners?
There's a couple ways I could say this. What I'm going to say today is it's a way to listen. And when we are listening to the voices within our body that are trying to give us messages, backache, tight hamstrings, stiff joints, all those little clues are trying to tell us that we are not in balance. Some people just assume that then, oh, my joints hurt, so it's arthritis. They just solve the problem with their head.
Mm-hmm.
But if you stop to take the time to listen and say to the body, I am listening to you. I hear you. I am ready to make an adjustment so that you can function better, because that's what your cue is trying to tell me. By listening and being compassionate to ourselves, we can completely change our day. We can change the way we have humor available to us. and we could change the filters that we're looking at our life through. And those filters don't have to be the ones that we currently have. The fear, the anxiety, could be grief and guilt. That'd be lung and large intestine. We don't have to have those filters holding us hostage. We can change them. And it's really simple to change them. We just have to be willing to hear the body and say, I'm willing to make the change. I'm willing to support you so you can function better, because together we have to do that for us to be well to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What does lighten up mean to you? And not as an avoidance, but as courage.
Well, it was interesting when you commented about in the comedy clubs, they turn the lights down so that people can freely laugh. Mm-hmm. And I was humored by the fact that you're called the Lighten Up Project, which would mean turn the lights on. Mm-hmm. So it's really the opposite. But I was remembering back to teaching when I had my full studio and I had black lights mounted in the ceiling, and we would turn the lights off so that people could feel free to do the things they wanted to do. And we had white socks we would put on our hands, put socks on our feet, and then we would do dances together. And you could hook the arms and you could move so freely. And so when you think about lightening up, it's that letting go of the tension of trying to be exactly something, and then to let that open to experience what is the possibility, rather than what have I decided needs to happen, or what have I solved something with because my brain has the capacity within my parameters of what I know. And I let go of all that. And when you lighten up, it's like all kinds of things come to you. You have a spark that comes into your life, and that spark is what really changes the way your day is happening. So the Lighten Up Project, even when we did laughter at the beginning, right? If you hold back on your laughter and you hold it hostage, that's exactly what you're doing to your day. So the Lighten Up Project really means let it go, let it be out there and enjoy it. And when we broke into laughter, we both felt so much better, and it felt so good to share it. It's a lovely way to live, rather than trying to solve things, put it in a box, hold it, and keep it from changing. We need to be open. We need to be expanded and be ready.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Wonderful. I have one more question for you. But before I ask that, could tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you and learn more about what you do.
Absolutely. So you can find the Be Well with Dr. Michele Greenwell podcast on the streaming lines. So you can find them there. If you want the video version, you can find it in the playlist on my YouTube channel, which is at Michele Greenwell. Nice and simple. My YouTube channel is full of all kinds of resources, many playlists. So based on what you're interested in looking at, you might find the playlist that caters to you the most. And that includes playlists for tea. You can find me at the Cape Breton Tea Company, capebretontea.ca, or you can find me at greenwellcenter.com. I have a lot of resources, lots of information on the website. And in the events section, there are a lot of projects that I have my hands in. So people can participate in a class. They can come to a workshop. I offer retreats. So there's lots of different ways to interact, but I collaborate with a lot of other healers and influencers in the world. And so keeping an eye on what's happening is a good thing, because you never know where I'm heading next. And I have a blog that I write at least 3 or 4 times a week. So people have the opportunity to sign on to that and get it delivered right to their inbox.
Wow. Okay. And as a reminder to everybody, all that information is in the show notes. So, Michele, thank you so much for all of this knowledge that you've shared with us today. Could you finish this sentence for me? healing doesn't have to be heavy because
when we're in flow and balance, joy finds us.
Very good. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Michele Greenwell. And thank you, audience, for tuning in once again to the Lighten Up Project. Tune in next week when we have yet another very interesting guest with a stimulating conversation. Until then, remember, one smile can open a door. One laugh can open a heart. And one step can be a victory. Until next week, I'll talk to you then. Have a nice week. Bye.
Thank you, Malcolm.
Thanks. Stressed out, stuck, or leading on autopilot? It's not a motivational problem, it's a connection problem. My weekly virtual improv classes boost engagement, collaboration, and retention, all while having fun. Register now for a complimentary month.